yourself, and we will recite together. And if you can, share the video so we can see everyone's face. Once the recitation is over, please don't forget to mute again. So everyone, please join palm. Bow.
We begin. I take refuge in Buddha. I take refuge in Dharma. I take refuge in Sangha. Or great vow. I vow to deliver innumerable sentient beings. I vow to cut off endless vexations. I vow to master limitless approaches to Dharma. I vow to attain supreme Buddhahood.
Bow.
Okay. Good morning to you all. Give me 1 second. I just have to mute the sound on this side. Sorry. I was a little late in getting started here. Okay. We've been talking about hold on, still on for some reason. I'm hearing an echo, I'm sorry. We've been talking about the mind. This is what I present to you. When I talk about the Buddha Dharma, I talk about mind, what we call the right view. This is what Master Shen Yang had emphasized to me, is to present the right view. This was one of the prerequisites of being a Dharma heir, is to present this right view. To me, the right view is how mind works. If we do not know how mind works, we are unable to properly meditate. We can meditate, but when we meditate, unfortunately, we will only be able to quiet the ego. We will not be able to transcend the ego because we're still using the ego to practice. So when we practice and we're sitting and our mind is engaged in the method, it is the ego that is watching the method. And we believe that we're properly meditating. But there is such a subtle difference. When we meditate in the proper way, what happens is that we're able to let go of that. And now, instead of the ego watching, the ego is out here. And so we are able to observe the ego, not via the idea of subject and object, but as a part of mind as a whole. So when we have this and we see everything that is projected upon mind, you could say on its mirrored surface, we don't disassociate from it and create a subject and object. What we do is we see that all of this is a manifestation of mind. So when we say we see it, it's not we as the ego, Gilbert, but as mind itself. This is the mind's perception. It's very important that you understand this, because if you cannot understand this and you begin to practice, you will not be able to make a breakthrough. But when you meditate in the proper way, then a breakthrough is inevitable. It is sure. And it is in this way. It is what one great master said, that if you use this method in a Chanchi's 7 days of uninterrupted practice, that at that time period, there's no doubt that one will see their true nature. And he said, may my tongue be cut out in a Viki hell every day if I'm wrong. And this is very strong to say something like this, but it is to give you the faith that if you do this in the proper way, it will work. Of course, if you sit there and you practice in meditation, but you're unable to keep this, then all the bets are off. Then this master can save his tongue. But if you practice and it didn't happen, then the master would have been wrong. But he's not wrong. If you practice in the proper way, it is inevitable that this will happen. You'll be able to realize the true nature of mind. Why? Because it's there. It's just, we don't see it because for so long we've been using the ego to process things and view the world as subject and object. From the very beginning of the Chan school, from Bodhidharma, we talked about Ekayana, this one mind vehicle. It's been this way from patriarch to patriarch to patriarch, all the way down, all the way through to Hui Ning. It has been in this way. There's been no difference in the teaching, and no difference throughout the classical period of Chan through to the later periods and to the modern day periods. It is just this way. But it's so much easier for us as Dharma presenters to kind of push all that to the side and say, don't talk about that, just sit. After you sit for a while, then you'll be able to sort this out. And to me, I say that once one develops a habit of practicing with the ego, then it's more difficult to break it and to pierce through. Some good students that have been practicing for many years, but were not aware of this single vehicle. When they've been made aware of it, they've been able to penetrate and make very great inroads into it simply by turning the mind's eye inward. Without doing that, then it's difficult for us to practice. So this, in terms of Chan 101, is a very important aspect of the practice. We cannot practice without this principle. If we practice without the principle, then we are not going to make the progress that we had expected and kind of wanted to kind of demand that we get. And that's the problem, is because we're seeking rather than resting the mind. When we sit to meditate, we rest the mind. What we sit, and each time you sit right away, right from the very beginning, you rest the mind. You rest the body first, relax the body, and then you rest the mind. What do you rest the mind on? If you have a method, then you rest the mind on the method. If you are using silent illumination, then you rest the mind just on mind. And if it's done in this way, it can be done right. But if you're sitting there and going, I'm in silent illumination, then you're already lost, because you're using the ego to look at everything. And the ego is using its like binoculars to see things and see, oh, I see this, I see that. Don't let this arise. Don't let that arise. Rather, when you sit there, you sit in a proper way. When you're using the ego, it's like using binoculars, except you're flipping it so that you're looking at the big end and the small end is out here. So everything seems so far away and the distant. But when you turn it, reverse the mind's eye inward, and you're only using mind to look at mind, then in this moment, it is intimate. This word is a very important word, intimate, because in this intimacy, you're right there. So let's say you have someone in your life who you're intimate with. It could be your spouse, your girlfriend, hopefully not at the same time, but your spouse or your girlfriend, your children. You know, when my son was very young, my youngest son, he would always come up next to me and just put his head on my shoulder, and he would just be there. This is an intimacy that we know we're comfortable. He's comfortable, I'm comfortable. We understand the relationship. So when we practice Chan, we have to understand the relationship. You have to be intimate with mind. If this side of mind is intimate with the other, then they join like matching halves. And everything is there. There's no need to explain, no need to try to decipher or to do anything or sit there waiting for something to happen. Now, I know many of you have done this. I would say probably maybe 99.99999% of you have sat there in meditation waiting for something to happen. And you're there, maybe in a retreat. It's 11 o'clock. You're looking at your watch. It's 11 o'clock. Maybe I'll get enlightened before lunch. This is the wrong way to do it. You are not intimate with mind. You have separated yourself from mind. And in this separation, then you have a difficulty because you are not seeing things via right view. There's still a duality there. And if you think of how many times you've recited the Heart Sutra, are you intimate with the Heart Sutra? Do you really understand the Heart Sutra, or do you just say it? Many of you can recite it without reading it. You can just, you know it by mind. But do you really know it? Do you know what it means in terms of this no duality, does not increase or decrease? In voidness, there's no form, sensation, perception, volition, or consciousness. All of the skandha, they're empty. Why are they empty? Because it's just mind. So the Heart Sutra is telling you, be intimate with mind. Be intimate. When you're intimate with mind, what comes out is a compassion. So when there's a compassion there and you look down at your son, there's a compassion. You feel something. You care about the interest in raising this child. To me, I care about this interest. I care about all of you, and I am raising you. What am I raising you to do? To be top-notch Chan practitioners. To be the best that you can be. But you have to share this intimacy with me. When you share it, then there's nothing to say, nothing to do. It is just in this way. So when we sit to meditate, and we're sitting to meditate, there's nothing to do. We just are there. We're sitting. Mind is sitting. Practice mind sitting, mind awareness. So the mind awareness is there moment to moment to moment, looking at the method. And if it's silent illumination, it's just simply aware of the environment. What is the environment? The environment is your, what is happening, what you could say externally around you, all of the noises, the temperature, cars, dogs barking, whatever it is, cracks on the wall. And also what is arising in the mind, in the consciousness. So we have to be clear about this, that what is arising in the consciousness and being conscious of everything that is around us is mind. It's an awareness there. What we do is we move the mind back and insert the ego, and now the ego is looking at everything, and we don't recognize that that ego is also an appearance. It is not real. And this is important because when we see that this ego is not real, it's transitory, constantly changing. Nevertheless, it's part of mind. It's appearing by causes and conditions. Mind does not appear by causes and conditions. Mind is causes and conditions. Pratika Samapada, causes and conditions never fail. The sutras say Pratika Samapada is mind. So now what we've done is we push the ego this way onto the mirror so that we can examine what is happening to in mind. When we can practice in this way, then we can practice in a way in which we are able to view everything, be aware of everything that is arising in the mind. This week, one very good practitioner asked me the question because I said we should not practice via the perception of the five skandha. We should practice from mind's own perception. And he asked me, what's the difference between using the five skandha perception and the perception of mind itself? Mind, when it sees things, it's totally aware. It's aware of things, but it's aware of things in a non-dual way. It sees precisely what is arising. It is not looking around at everything going, I am mind. It still utilizes this vehicle, this vessel, red meatball called Gilbert, to move around and communicate with people and utilize the personality of Gilbert and to, but it utilizes the mind's heart to perfect the function of mind, which is this compassion, taking care of the children, taking care of the loved ones. Except now, this care that we give is expanded to all sentient beings. When we see it in this way, there's no discrimination. There's no sentimentality, no kind of, oh, I love you, but if you don't love me, then maybe I don't love you kind of way. It's one that is caring for each and every one of you. An interest there. In the Abhidharma, it is called Karuna, K-A-R-U-N-A. Now, it's very interesting because in the definitions in the Abhidharma, there is the definition before it is metta. Metta is a term called loving kindness. So loving kindness is kind of like we want to extend to everyone a kindness, to be kind to people, not to be mean to people, but to be kind to people. And we try to help them in whichever way that we can. Karuna is the intimacy of the mind. It is this caring that we express through body, speech, and mind. All time in our mind, we should give rise to Karuna. And we should be able to utilize this body for the purposes of helping others. This Karuna is when you sit, your mind is at rest, it's peaceful. And in fact, what you're doing is you're enabling the mind to be able to perceive all things that arise, not just externally and imaginings within the mind, but the very subtle imagining, the one that's the most insidious, which is the arising of an ego, a personality, or life and being. When we see those things, then we become aware that they have arisen. So this is very, very important. When we meditate, then we sit just via mind. We use the mind's own discernment, this wisdom, to perceive, oh, Gilbert says he's thirsty. Gilbert says he's impatient. He's superimposed onto the mere wall of the mind. It is seen. And what do we say? We say that this is something that's natural. It's naturally arising. It's something that, of course, we see this. And we use our wisdom to see these appearances. When we can do that, then we can see those appearances in wherever we go. We're aware of that. We're aware of the people that we're communicating with. Their ego is arising. Sometimes the ego is one that's very, very strong, very powerful. I am smart, you are dumb. I am right, you are wrong. I have everything, you have nothing. Oftentimes it's the reverse. I wish I was dead. I am worthless. That's ego too. We have to be careful and guard against both extremes. So we study the Madhyamika, the middle way, and remain in the middle way. We see these things clearly as manifestations of mind in accordance with causes and conditions. This is wisdom. This wisdom enables us to be intimate with the surroundings and the arisings in the samsaric world. It enables us to understand what is appearing. We are clear about this. When we use the mind's own perception to see things, we do not see it in a linear way. We don't see it and say, I see this, my opinion is this, I see this, this is it, and this is going this way. That's linear, kind of like a string of pearls that are connected in a stream of consciousness. Mind isn't that way. Mind is not temporal or spatial. Mind is just mind, but is aware of this continuing play of samsaric existences within it. And who knows how many places, how many universes, how many worlds that these samsaric existences are played out. We only know about here, but then we think that the sun revolves around the earth and reality revolves around the earth, and we can reach out, but we can only reach out to the end of our arm. But suppose you can reach out and touch another universe. How is that possible? One student asked what mind was to a master, and the master said to him, swallow all the waters of the Ganges River, and then I will tell you. Is that possible? Why not? In the samsaric world, of course, after a few drinks of the water of the Ganges River, which might be polluted anyway, you probably have your fill. But if you were able to do that, then you are not using the perception of a sentient being, but you're using mind's own perception. Then these things are not impossible. But from this side, they're inconceivable. We don't try to make the other side something fantastic, because that's only conceptions from this side. What we do is we try to make it intimate. We try to bring our awareness in harmony with mind's own awareness, begin to cast off these vestiges of the samsaric world. And what are these vestiges? Vestiges meaning the clothing of this samsaric world. What we cast off is the ego, the personality, a life and being. We let those things go. They belong to the samsaric side. Nevertheless, where do they go? They don't get pushed aside. It's like Baisong's ducks flying by. It's still, even if they fly out of view, they remain in mind. So we don't have to worry about that. We don't have to try to erase the ego or the personality. We just simply have to be aware of its arising and use the discernment of mind, what we call Anyatara Samyak Sambodhi, and I'm sure you've heard that word before. This is the highest unexcelled wisdom that manifests from one using right view. So if we use the right view in the proper way, then the mind will be very, very clear. It will see things in the right way. If we do not use it in this way, then we're stuck here in samsara, and we can be a better citizen. But there's no exit. And we will spend this lifetime, and perhaps lifetimes after lifetimes, looking for the door. We're trying to find, where's the door? There must be a door. It's kind of like some kind of a Netflix sci-fi program where you're looking for the door. I have to find the door. Oh, there it is right there. I can feel it. I just have to open it up. It is not in this way. It's just simply when you sit to meditate, you rest the mind. You rest it. Use it in the correct way. Now you have a chance to use it in the proper way. When you use it in the proper way, then the mind is easy to use. When we try to conjure up all sorts of different opinions about it and conceptions about it, we mess everything up. And then perhaps we may get some kind of a fantastic appearance. And if we see that, then we get caught on it. Wow, this is something very good. One of you recently had asked me about something that they saw while they were meditating, kind of like I would perceive it to be like a hypnotic circle when they were meditating. And you're looking at it, seeing the circle going around. What happened to the method? Do you really believe you're going to go into that? Or that's like a vortex or the void? You're just hypnotizing yourself. It was very funny because Shifu at one time, he was saying this about Guyan Fascia, because Guyan Fascia is very good about talking about relaxing the body and relaxing. And he was saying, yeah, Guyan Fascia, he's always talking about relaxing the body and relax. And he's saying all of this hocus pocus. And he was playfully picking at Guyan Fascia by saying, yes, we relax the body, relax the mind, but there's no expectation once we do that. It is mind itself that's important. It's mind's discernment. So using mind's discernment, and if we see this, we just go, no, this is just an illusion. All we have to do is see it as an illusion via mind's perception, and it disappears. It will go away. So don't sit there and look around. Anything coming? Do I see something? Do I see a field of red? Do I see a field of blue or sparkly lights or whatever? And you're there looking, waiting for some kind of a New Year's Eve, explosion of fireworks around you. Don't do that. It's very subtle. it's something that is very ordinary and immediate. But in this ordinariness, this mundaneness of mind, it's intimate. How can it not be? Because it's not something outside of you. It is just in this very moment that one sees this. They see it clearly. It is just this moment. The moment with Gilbert. The only thing is that Gilbert is seen as something superimposed onto the mere mind. He is precisely in where he should be seen at. That's all. If we can see things in this way, it changes the manner and how we meditate. A big, big difference. Because when we sit, the pressure is off of us. We don't have to come to some realization. When you sit this way in meditation, you'll find that this type of sitting in meditation will enable you just to sit perfectly. Nothing to do. The Wen Chan poem, have you heard of the man of the Tao who has nothing to do? Shifu's death poem, what did it say? Busy doing nothing. And to me, when people ask me, how are you doing? I'm always telling people, oh, I'm busy doing nothing. Not bad. You just, in this moment, we don't have to say, oh, Gilbert is involved in this, or Gilbert has a pain in the neck here, or whatever. It's just whatever needs to be done, whatever needs to be projected to help people. Then we use that. We use this in a way, we use our heart, and we know how to express the Dharma, how to do that. In this past week, I've received notices of 2 people that have passed away. And my communications with the people, one is a friend of mine that is a Christian, but I responded to him in a Christian way. And so, in terms of that, you know, my function was to make him feel comfortable, to help him, and to be intimate with him in this moment, to know that there's somebody that feels for him. You know, it's like, you can't just say, oh, I'm so sorry, you know. You have to find something that gives them some hope and brings them even into their faith. So to him, I just said, may the Lord excuse all of your father's transgressions and look favorably upon his merits in this lifetime. Not bad. It helped. It helped him because he realizes that there's an intimacy there, that there's a caring, a Karuna there, that it brings forth more intimacy with him and I in terms of the practice, and it's sincere. You don't have to think about these things, they come out. Another was someone who had a relative pass away. It's a Buddhist. And the first thing I said is, it's natural for somebody to grieve a loss of a relative. But then I mentioned, may your practice in Buddha Dharma give you strength to overcome this grief. In this way, I'm not saying to the people, well, everything's impermanent, so they're gone. That's not going to help. But you use your intimacy, your karuna to help people. Why am I spending the time to do it? Because that's what the Heart Sutra was talking about. This is not something that you could say Hinayana entry just simply to get to nirvana. It's like you're the mother hen watching over the entire brood, being careful, being that wise father or grandfather to help people, to calm them down, to point them in the right direction. This is our practice. This is Chan 101. If we do not approach Chan 101 from this viewpoint, then we're lost. If we're just simply trying to get off the bus, it's not going to work. We have to practice in a proper way. So all of that is kind of a preamble to what I'm going to present today. But it's necessary. And as I mentioned, in this Chan 101, I will show you how to meditate. But first, you must know why you meditate and what you're doing in terms of this, that we are trying to connect with mind. We're doing mind work, not trying to clean up the house. When we talk about sweeping, what we mean is not cleaning up the house in this way. We're talking about sweeping the clinging of the thoughts, so one does not approach things in this kind of a linear way of thinking, where this thought attaches this one to this one to this one, and it creates this chain. Rather, that we see everything moment to moment clearly. The mind in this way is not connected via a temporal or spatial way, is time or space. It just is. It's the suchness of mind. And the more that we begin to practice in this way, the more we'll be able to understand how mind works and be able to connect with it and utilize this. If we can do this, then truly we're a practitioner without fear. This is very important to us. So we don't just say, oh, I'm not afraid of death. You have to see that there is no birth and death. This is important. There's two types of death in Buddha Dharma. One is the death of a sentient being, but it can also be the death of moment to moment, birth and death of habitual patterns. The second type of death is the death of realizing that this body is impermanent. We accept that. So we accept that that this body at some point in time will give way. We're okay with that. We don't have to worry about that. Doesn't mean that we go out and in the freeway and stand there and go, you know, how long can I stay here in front of this truck before I have to move out and tempt death? That's not the middle way. What it is we take care of this body for the sake of accomplishing the Buddha path. And so we have vested interest in taking care of this body, but not for ourselves, but for whatever we can do. So every time I present the Dharma to people, I present it with as if it's my last breath, at my last instruction, just simply because I don't know when that's going to be, when you know, I will leave here. And so you do your best and you practice your hardest to do this. This is a sincerity of the practice. When we have the sincere practice, then we know clearly that this is that we're on the right path. Again, this intimacy with mind, not with the self, but with mind. The intimacy with mind will enable us to be intimate with others. Why? Because they're not separate from us. This very mind that we're using runs through them as well. Before I get to the next part, are there any questions? Any questions? Mark Wu. Yes.
Yeah, Mark, go ahead. You can unmute yourself.
Mark? You have a hand up.
I do have a question. When you mentioned about to have an intimate with your mind, what does that mean when we actually practice? Because we always thought using the method is where we have an intimate relationship with the mind. But sometimes there's a me, there's a method, and there's an environment, then there's a mind. They're all separate. We understand that's an error of thinking. They're supposed to be all at one. But when you say this, are you saying that during the practice, we should try to integrate, or that they naturally become the mind driven the method itself, or something else?
Okay. This is where the error is in the practice, because it is not you that's utilizing the method. It's mind utilizing the method. So when you are using it, then now what you've done, let's see if I have one of these pens will work. Is this is the method that you're using, and it's projected upon mind. When we contemplate, we simply just look at all of this and we see that there's things there. Now, within mind, there might be certain arisings, something, let's say, a love interest, a money interest. All of these are projected on the mind field, and we're seeing it. But what happens is that when you hear as an ego, now we have Mark looking at the method, you think that this is the practice here. And so you're looking at it from here and you've separated, when in fact, Mark is appearing on the mind field as well. But you're confused, and so you're looking around and it's a transient existence looking at another transient existence, something that's transitory, temporary, that's appearing, but you believe that this is the practice. It is not this way. Mind contemplates, not thinks, but contemplates what you're seeing. So when mind sees it, it sees everything, not just the method. It sees the method plus all these arisings, including you. So here's Mark appearing in the method, around the method. We don't have to pay any attention to him. We don't have to pay any attention to the money or the love interest or whatever. Little by little, these will begin to lose energy and dissipate. The method will be there and will stay there. So if it's a Watteau, it's a Watteau. If it's counting the breath, it's counting the breath. It's illumination. One is just aware of the mind ground. And so if in the mind ground, there is some kind of a sound, music playing, it could be aware of music playing, but it doesn't affect anything. It's just that it's understood that this is an intimacy. You see, it's intimate with everything. It's not just intimate with the method. The method is kept here just as a stabilizing point. It stabilizes the mind to look at one point so that it is able to begin to contemplate. When we don't have the method, then it's difficult for us, because all of these different appearances can arise: a money interest, again, a love interest, whatever it is. will arise, and it will take our focus away, so that all we're doing is now we're looking at that. And so as a result, we've lost our ability to contemplate and have awareness. But the awareness is what we call a state of equipoise. The state of equipoise or equanimity is that everything that is appearing in mind is seen. It does not have to be thought of. It is just simply in this way that it sees the things very, very clearly. It's aware of them, using its own contemplation, its own perception. When we use the perception of Mark, let's see. So if we use the perception of Mark, Mark has to say, oh, I have a love interest, but I need money to do this. So I have to go to work to get money. And what if that love interest doesn't like me? Then, I'm going down, and it's a string, because it's all appearing in this side here in the appearances. But what we know is these appearances are not real. The ego is not real, but the mind that you're using to ask the question is real. So this is what we're seeing here, is this contemplation, and this is the total awareness of what is appearing at any given moment. So as it's doing this, then the mind is very, very, it understands, it knows exactly why the music is appearing, the love is appearing, the concern about money, whatever it is, it knows that. It doesn't have to look at it individually. It sees it very clearly. Does that help? We have a question from Annie. Annie?
Hi. So this is
A little louder, please.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
So this is very interesting. The graph you just showed us. You're talking about this intimacy. Meantime, seems this intimacy also has some detachment, right?
Say that
Sounds
last
like
part again.
it's a detachment.
Attachment?
Detachment.
Oh, detachment.
It seems this intimacy is a detached intimacy. Is that right? It has some kind of not involved with the right side.
It is. Let me put it this way. When we use the samsaric realm, we have thinking in this way, a linear thinking, like this. Okay, you start here, and then you see things, and maybe there's a love interest or whatever. When we use mind, it is not detached. It is simply the function of mind to interact with whatever is appearing here. It is not detached. It is not attached. It's in harmony with it. This is very, very important. Mind using contemplation and the awareness of mind simply follows that there's a function there. And then this function is what is used. So it's neither attached nor detached. If it's detached, then we could care less of what's arising in the samsaric realm. But quite to the contrary, that's why this Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, the product of it is compassion. But this compassion is not the compassion that's here, that Annie is experiencing compassion. It is the natural function of the mind to express compassion in this way. So hopefully that helps you. A lot of questions. Okay. Another question. Ikai?
Yes. So when talking about the two sides, we start with the I that is using the method. And later on, when I diminishes little by little, the mind, the true mind, takes over everything. Well, of course, the mind is always there. So is my understanding correct that only I using the method? When the mind takes over, there's no method.
The method exists, but the method exists, but it's just a placemat. It's just somewhere to keep, so to enable somebody to stabilize the meditation, so to enable the awareness to be there uninterrupted. So what it's doing is it's fighting poison with poison by looking at something that's on the mirror mind, and it's seeing it. So when we see the method here, it's just something to keep the mind focused, so it's not all these other thoughts that are arising here will not take it off. Then at that point, then it's like us sitting in meditation, and then we see all these things arising around us like clouds. But the only cloud we want to see is the method. And all these other things come and go, they float in, float out, float in, float out. And this is a good analogy to show that these things come, that they form, they can change, they can be there little by little, they become smaller. And the method stays the same. It becomes stronger and more stabilized. Little by little, these go away, and eventually the method itself, because it's illusory, will drop off. Then the sense of self will not be there, because we're just simply sitting in meditation. We're aware of all the things around, but there's no self to verify or certify that anything has happened. It is just mind. It is these two at that point becoming mine. And I have to put the arrows in this way to show that it's infinite. So this is where you would be going towards, is this mind that's infinite. But there's no you to see that. In order for this to happen, the prerequisite is the self has to be seen as just simply an appearance. I probably went a little bit past Chan 101 right there, maybe into Chan 201, but I think it's helpful for some of you who've been practicing longer. More questions?
Esther has a question. Perception of mind and perception of sentient beings, what's the difference?
Well, the perception of mind is instant. It's an instant download of everything that's happening. For instance, in this moment, if I'm using a perception of mind, I'm aware of all the things that are happening. I can even be aware of the sound of my refrigerator just turning on right now, or whatever's happening, or a bird flying by, but it doesn't interfere with what I'm doing. Everything's in a state of equanimity, and there's not an idea of inflows or outflows. It's just simply mind is stabilized. And so it doesn't pick and choose anything. It just sees things exactly, but it enables one to utilize the mind in a function, in an activity like Samantabhadra, to express the Dharma. And so in this way, everything is just perfectly in its place. It's clear. We know what we do. I don't go, oh my gosh, another question or whatever. That never enters into my mind. I'm cognizant of the time that's here, but I'm taking the time to respond to them, because these are important questions that are arising that help all of the people. If it was a ridiculous question, then I would just stop it. but these questions are vital. So this is how mind functions. So the difference is that if Gilbert is doing this, Gilbert would be talking about himself. He'd be talking about different things but he'd rethink, how am I doing this? Am I doing good? Am I doing bad? Do they understand me? Do they like me? Do they hate me? All this nonsense that interferes with what's going on. Okay. But when the mind is just simply there, it's an instant download of all this information that when we're using this kind of a linear thinking, like this, we cannot get it. But when everything is just simply mind, turn it this way, when everything is simply mind, it is just natural. It enables our mind to function and express and reveal more information. So not only are we seeing in the external environment things that are appearing optically from the eye, but we can smell, we can see things, we can do many more things by simply just letting go. When we let go, all this information comes in. This is a state of equanimity where we're enabled to use all of this information. Okay, next question.
Thank you.
I see Sue Tong.
So Sue has a question. But before Sue, there was a question from Robert. How come it seems there is something overseeing, aware of everything that is either projected, moving, or not moving? Sometimes even aware of there is just nothing to aware, or just a stop that is not a stop we ordinarily know. Is the ego trying to fool again? Is it getting smart over time? So his question was, how come it seems there's something overseeing, aware of everything?
Well, you're correct, Robert, that the ego becomes more subtle. That's why they talk about subtle wisdom, because it's very easy for us to say, oh, this world is samsaric, it's impermanent, don't cling to it. But then when they say, well, and you too, Gilbert, you go, what, me? No, I need to be here. No, you have to go. Okay, all right. And so you think he's sitting on the side, but then he's coming over and getting involved with everything, and you don't even see it, where he starts sneaking up behind you, and so he's right there, you know, because it's so subtle, you cannot see this. So this is why you have to continue to contemplate. As you begin to contemplate, you start feeling that there's some impressions that are appearing in mind that are biased or discriminatory, or being drawn in, kind of like in space, there's like a black hole. You cannot see the black hole, but the way the astronomers see where the black hole is because they see the behavior of other objects that begin to move towards that. So in the mind, these are very subtle points, but they begin to move in some way. And you're going, that's curious, you know, because all of a sudden I'm sitting there going, I have no thought. Well, where did that thought come from? And so it's very, very subtle. But as you begin to pull away from that, then you can detect these very slight movements. And so it's something that the mind is able to amplify. If the mind is still, it can detect these very subtle movements of self. So you can never just say, okay, self is gone. Gilbert, are you gone? Oh, most certainly I'm gone. You can continue on with the lecture because I'm not here. Just imagine I'm not here. And you go, it's good enough for me. And if you stop there, then you mess it up. You have to continue. How do you continue? You don't try to chase Gilbert out. You just simply are aware of the mind. You're aware of how all of this works. and you understand that there's these subtle movements. You can feel it. You can feel, oh, that's kind of is like self. And the mind just feels that, okay? Okay, Sue's next, I think.
Hi, Gilbert.
Yes.
I have a trouble putting my picture on. I'm sorry. My question was actually it was there are two parts, but let me go. The last drawing that you have when the self, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I just adjusted.
The
Go ahead.
self that went inside, I guess the head, the two merge. Is that like the environment and you are in one? That first your mind and body, right? According to Sifu's book, then there's a body, mind, and the environment. But I think your last drawing, not actually you pull out another one. I wasn't talking about that one. I'm talking about the one that the cell by itself, that on the side and went inside. You know which one I'm talking about.
Yes.
Okay. So can you describe that conditions?
Well, let me explain to you what I think is what you're doing is that you're looking at things and seeing and saying the body and all of this samsaric stuff, they're all in harmony. This here, this is your air. This one here is an illusion. So if you maintain this kind of a thinking, you're not going to be able to do it in the right way. The reason
I'm not talking about this one. I'm sorry. I'm talking about the other one.
I'm just trying to explain to you, a new diagram that when you say the body and the mind, this is a samsaric appearances in here. And you're saying that these are all equal, but it's not in this way. What we do is we see clearly that all of this is mind. It's an appearance, but it's a transitory appearance. This, again, is your knowing mind here. And this is the Dharmakaya. This is the mind ground itself. So this part here, if I can write upside down, is the Ru Jing. And this is Ru Z. This is an R. So this is the knowing aspect of the mind, awareness, and this is the Dharmakaya. This is where appearances are coming up. These are in harmony, but this is not in the equation. This is over on this side as an appearance. So do not take the ego or a sense of self or anything in this way as being part of over here. If you see it in this way, you'll mess everything up. Everything's going to be out of balance. It's not going to be easy.
Not Gilbert. May I just say something? It's the picture you draw for Anne's to answer Anne's question, not this one.
Okay. So what is go
I wish I have a picture. I mean, not this one, the one previous one, when I raised my hand and then you went on Robert's question. I'm sorry, but never mind.
It's okay, because the thing is, what I'm doing is trying to answer the question that you have. I know it's kind of a difficult thing, but when we look at it this way, this is What I'm expressing is what you need to contemplate. That's what's important, is you need to contemplate that aspect of it, is simply forget about that self that's appearing, okay? And it is just seeing, but you have to see, let's say in our doctrinal way, that it belongs to the samsaric side. But that's okay. You can express it to me later on if you want, okay? All right, go on to the next question then.
Mark, do you have a question, Mark?
If there's
Yes.
the questions, just I want to take questions from people who haven't asked a question. Unless your question is very quick, Mark.
Oh, it's very quick. I just want to clarify, Gilbert, when you say for the method and the other things I understand, but does that mean when we using the method, we should not using the method like a searchlight? We should using the method like a contemplate totality, but focus on the method itself. And that the other that it going and coming because they are all part of the mind. Is that what you try to say that?
Yes. So when you're sitting there and if you're looking like this at the method, then this is not correct. You have to use the mind's own awareness via contemplation to see this side. If you put yourself here, you mess everything up. Then it's just thinking, and it's we have to use what's called wu nian. The wu nian is no thought, but it's not no thought like saying we don't have a thought at all. It is just the mind's own method of processing information, which is nonlinear. It is just simply immediate response to whatever's appearing at that moment. So this is Wu Yin. So it can have thousands and thousands of thoughts. It's just not attaching to them. Okay, next question.
So there's a question from Facebook. JN Chong. The question is, I don't really understand the sandwich analogy. Could you explain more on the bread, center of the sandwich, and the mind, true mind, and wandering thoughts on the sandwich, please?
Okay, when we contemplate, and we contemplate the method, we're looking at the method in mind. But like Mark was saying, it's not like a searchlight, like a laser beam, just looking at that. We relax the mind. We relax it so that when we see this, let's say we're looking from a side view of mind, when we see the method is there, but other things will arise. Let's say it's a new car that you want to buy here. Again, a money problem, could be a donut, could be whatever that's arising, but our attention is here. But we also are aware of all these other arisings, but we don't move the mind's eye towards it. Once we move the mind's eye towards it, then all of a sudden the donut takes center stage. So you have to kind of look at the way that things are, and all of a sudden the center stage, the mind's occupation is now with this donut. Rather, when we use the method is kind of a placemat that holds us there so that we don't allow the mind to be able to focus on any of these. If the donut arises and we don't pay attention to it, it will arise less and become much smaller. The money problems will become smaller. Eventually the donut just goes away. The car is here, it will then go. And then eventually the method itself will go. So this is how we practice. So, but we don't laser point the mind. Doing that is not natural. It's an artificial way of looking at things where we're laser pointing to the method. And it's kind of like going, I don't want to see anything. I just want to see the method. Rather, we relax the mind. we relax it and allow it to sit. We put the method there in front of us. We're aware of the method. We contemplate the method. So what is contemplation? It is just simply being aware in this moment that there is that one is in meditation. The mind is aware of the method and aware of the surroundings. It's like what Master Suzuki said, give the mind a broad pasture to roam in. Not bad. Remember that. Just allow the mind there, but the method is right there and you're looking at the method. But you don't have to like look directly at it. We just know that the method is there. It's out here somewhere and we're watching it, but we're seeing everything else around as well. The only thing is that when we're seeing it, we're just using mind's awareness to see it. We're not developing a cogitation, a linear thinking of it. Okay, next question.
Zhongming, Pusa, please, you're next.
Hello?
Morning, Gilbert. Thank you for the teaching. This intimacy seems very helpful. And I have a question about, it's not when I sit in meditation, in the daily life, just a few days, because my email had got some trouble, I start to have the fear very strong in my mind. And that get to me so strong. And then the time I try to practice, I use a different thing. I say, oh, I need to relax my body. I need to do, and finally I say, okay, that's just this fear. And it looks like when you talk about intimacy, do I just kind of intimacy with this fear, because that's my mind too. That I have no idea, but that's would you give me some advice? Thank you.
The intimacy is one that is based on wisdom, not on any kind of an emotional attachment. Mind is not separate from emotions, but is not driven by emotions. And from fear or misunderstanding or whatever, when we're intimate with it, it's kind of like saying, okay, this is appearing. We know why it's appearing. We know precisely why it's appearing in mind at this moment. So it brings us closer and closer to this discernment, which is wisdom. And this wisdom enables us to see the things and understand the appearances within mind, and most importantly, the appearances of the self and this ego, which is not there. It is just simply mind itself. And once we disassociate from the personality aspect of it, it enables us to settle down. It'll come with time. Just keep working on this and contemplating, and little by little you'll see an improvement in the way that you see things. This is not something that I can just tell you, like dropping a pill in your mouth and you're going, oh, I get it. You know, next one, dropping a pill. You know, if I could do that, I could be very rich. I'd charge like $10,000 a pill, and there would be a long line of people doing that. But no, you have to practice it. And as you practice it, you'll see little by little, it will come to you. Some of you who are novices or are new to this, just be patient with it. It will come. The only difference is that at least you're getting right view from the very beginning, so you know what end of the hoe to use to tend the garden. Okay, next question.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Nicholas Zhang. Nicholas, you can unmute yourself.
Hey, Gilbert. So at the beginning, you talked, if I heard you correctly, you said that we often view things as subject and matter. I was wondering if you could like explain a little bit more about that, and also like why is that a problem?
The idea in terms of subject and object, we nevertheless in the practice of Chan, we utilize the discernment of the mind to see things, and we're able to process through the five senses. As we process things through the five senses, the mind can navigate through the samsaric realm, but via Anyatara Samyak Sambodhi, this unexcelled wisdom. But as we see things and we cling to the idea that there is a subject, somebody that is seeing some kind of an object, then at that point that it's very, very difficult for us to extricate ourselves from the idea of the ego. So once we begin to see things in this way, then the ego is always getting in front and trying to have opinions, picking and choosing what is appearing. When we see things as they really are, that all of this is a function of mind, everything is appearing in accordance with Pratika Samappada, then it is very, very easy to process things and know what to say next or what to do next. But when we have this intermediary, which is the subject that's thinking about all this and processing it, it slows the mind down. We don't need that. We don't need that personality or life and being in order for us to navigate this world. We just simply use the mind's own discernment to see things clearly. It's not easy because we have this I think, therefore I am, self-proving type of an ego, but we have to move beyond that. How we do that is we begin to train ourselves when we sit to meditate, simply to contemplate. As we begin to contemplate, then the two halves will then join and we'll see the things. And then when we get up off the cushion, we're able to use this kind of a discernment to see the things around us. And then we see that not from the viewpoint of subject and object, but just the viewpoint of mind itself. Everything is appearing. Shifu used to always say, you know, everything is just mind. You're swimming in it every day. You're just swimming, swimming, swimming. And he's just laughing. But the people don't understand what he's saying. They thought he was cute making his movements, but they didn't really understand the intimacy of what he was talking about. So you, little by little, you will get there. Okay, I have to move on. So next question.
Simon, you can unmute yourself.
Hey, Gilbert. I had a question kind of similar to the other ones, but how do you use, like this, if you used mind and contemplation, let's say you're seasoned at it, and you know, how do you use that in difficult situations? And does it look differently? For example, like if your child died, right? It's just a normal thing that people have to grieve, right? And if you're using your mind, does that grieving process look any different than a person that isn't using their mind? You know what
Yes
I mean?
and no, and I never tempt fate with that. I always tell people that if one of my children were to die, I would suffer because that's natural. We're in the samsaric world and there's an attachment. So I wouldn't want one of my children to die to say, oh, I don't feel anything. No, quite to the contrary. You know, there's a time for laughing and time for crying. Even in Shifu's death poem, he's talking about laughing and crying. But nevertheless, we still have a time in which we utilize our Buddha Dharma. Earlier this year, I had a very serious medical problem that kept me in pain, a nonstop pain. And the only thing that I could do was practice Buddha Dharma. And the more I practiced it, I could not get rid of the pain, but I got rid of the suffering. And that was important. The more I went into the Buddha Dharma, the less I suffered. Even though the pain is there, then there's a difference there, because when we suffer, that amplifies the pain. It amplifies the way that we see things. So we use our way of practice in a proper way. I once had a cousin who son was died by way of a violent death, a murder. And when they told me about her, they said that she had been been still grieving for months later. And I called her up and I talked to her, and she said, everybody tells me to stop crying, but that just makes me cry more. And I said to her, who should tell a mother when to stop grieving for their child? This is natural. To not grieve would be unnatural. So in that moment, she saw clearly. She was free. She was liberated from having to cry. She just needed someone to explain that to her. And so when we look at that, we see that there was the pain of the passing, but then the continuation of the suffering. And sometimes we use this in this way, not just for ourselves, but to understand the grieving of other people and the suffering of other people. We don't tell the people, oh, everything's impermanent, don't suffer, you know, or you have to stop crying now. No, you say, well, you know, how can anybody tell a mom to stop crying? And it was the exact opposite. It worked in which she stopped crying because she was liberated from that suffering. So when we practice in this way, whatever suffering we have, we liberate ourselves from that suffering, and we use this kind of a wisdom to help others, you know, via the proper compassion. Okay. Next question. Is any left? I know we're going over time, but if you guys want to stay, it's fine with me. I never got to half my lecture.
There are 2 more questions. Would you like to answer them now or leave till?
Yes, that's fine.
Time? Okay. So
there's still people
from
there.
Wen Yi, how do I let my mind look inside my mind without ego? Can you elaborate more?
Could you read that one more time?
How do I let my mind look inside my mind without ego? How do I let the mind look inwardly without ego?
It comes with practice. So what we do is we contemplate. We just let the mind rest. We begin to discern when thoughts are arising in mind. So we just stay using the method as a placemat, and we just, with time and practice, we can do it. If I just told you, stop thinking, just contemplate, some of you that have a deep root can get it right away. Others, it will just take time and practice. But the Chinese have a saying that great skill often manifests later. So just understand that this is the way to do it. Just keep practicing and seeing things that are arising in the mind. You need not push them out of the mind. You just have to illuminate them. This is what's called the illumination of the mind. We illuminate what is arising in mind. The more and more we illuminate, we not only see what is arising, but we see why it's arising and what are its associative karmic factors that are arising with it. Okay, next one.
So next one is from Ian Scott. Life is difficult. Can you say until one accepts this as a fact, life will be difficult? In other words, when you are okay with life being difficult, it will no longer be difficult.
Life is neither difficult nor easy. It just is. It is because it is arising in accordance with Pratika Samapada, causes and conditions never fail. So we make life difficult. We make life easy. We maybe, if we're a fair-weathered ego, if we're very rich, then to us it's very easy to have a nice life. But then we still suffer from things that bother us. Even if we're rich, we have rich people problems. We make all of that up. So we choose not to pick and choose. We choose the Buddha. As we begin to choose the Buddha, then this world is just this world. It is what it is. There's good points, bad points, healthy times, and times when we don't have health. People die, people are born. All of these things are appearances in mind. We neither welcome them or try to cast them out. We just see the world as it is. This is wisdom. When we see it in this way, we're not so concerned about grading our life. Is this a good life or a bad life? Or dwelling on our suffering and thinking some kind of a self-flagellant way where we're whipping ourselves, thinking, I have to whip myself in order to cleanse myself. This is not the middle way.
So I don't see any more questions because of the time. So since there's no hands, thank you, Gilbert, for today's lecture. It's very important, especially I found a lot of we cover a lot of topic about life.
Yeah.
So
I
yeah,
never got to
you.
my written or what my topic was, but that's fine. All of this is just in accordance with causes and conditions, and this is how Chan is presented. Is it's live, and it's difficult to get things from a recording. So when we see it live, it's spontaneous, immediate to whatever's happening in that moment. So we'll continue on next
Thank you
week.
very much. Thank you. So
Amitofo.
everyone, please join palm and bow. Amitofo.
Thank you for listening.